Vivek Ramaswamy. It's good to have him back on the show. Vivek, thank you very much for being with us. Your poll numbers showed positive move. Certainly, you're in the top echelon of the candidates, and a lot of people didn't see that coming, but here you are. At the end of the day, the proof is in the performance. Now, as I said in the intro, you wanted the light, you're going to take the heat. How do you feel about the level of scrutiny that you are getting and why you're getting it?
I feel good about it, Chris. The answer is if you can't handle the heat, you stay out of the kitchen. One of the rules I've applied in this campaign is we talk to everyone. Left, right, black, white, doesn't matter. If I'm going to run to sit across the table from Xi Jinping, I better be willing to sit across the table from anybody here at home. That goes for media and my fellow competitors on that debate stage. And I think that the reason we're having this kind of success, some of the polls coming out even today, having me now in second place solidly, is because I am speaking the truth without apology. And I've said this since the beginning. I'll say it again. I would rather share my convictions and lose this election than to win by playing some careful political snakes and ladders. But it turns out, Chris, that appears to be the winning strategy so far, and I'm going to stick to it.
Listen, I believe you, and I'll tell you why. Yeah. Because I see a fundamental flaw in your proposition, which is Trump is better than you by your own description. He was the best as president.
Disagree.
He's the prohibitive favorite. But I don't understand, how are you better than him? If Trump's in the race, what do they need you for? You say, well, I'll bring people together. But you're echoing all of the divisive things that he says. So I don't get the proposition. Help me.
Well, I respectfully disagree with you on multiple counts, Andrew, but I think that the reality is...
Now we're going to go at
excuse me. I was provoking you.
My mother does the same thing.
I was going to say, we'll give each other the heat.
That's the biggest insult you could have said. Go ahead.
Well, tell your brother I said hello. But the reality is this, okay? So I could take the Trump America First agenda even further by reuniting this country. And I think our base understands that even if Trump's the nominee, I think there's no one in the Republican Party who can win in a landslide election the way I am. 40% of our donors are first-time ever donors to the GOP of any kind. That's unprecedented. Usually that number is 2% for a normal Republican candidate. I've campaigned from the south side of Chicago to the West Coast to Kensington in the inner city of Philadelphia. My philosophy is no state left behind, no city left behind, no American left behind. I haven't talked to Zelensky, but I have talked to victims in Maui. And I think this is a big part of how I'm building a multi-ethnic working class coalition that I think can deliver a landslide like Reagan did in 1980. And many in our base understand deeply, Chris, that this has to be a moral mandate in this election. Bringing people young and old, black and white, that's what I'm doing in this race. And that allows me to go even further than Trump did. Not just building the wall, but using the military to actually secure the border. Not just putting Betsy DeVos on top of the Department of Education, but actually having a clear plan for shutting it down, along with many other government agencies. So you're right, I do respect Trump. I think he was better than Bush and Biden and Obama, which is why I called him the best president of the 21st century. By definition, that's true, if you believe those things. But I'm leading the America First movement to the next level, and I think we're going to succeed.
But that would mean, so if you're going to say, well, because I'll be a uniter, and you can say what you want about Trump, he was not a uniter. So if that is the thing, that's why I didn't get the Presley comment about the KKK. First of all, you know that you do not analogize a black member of Congress or a black anybody to a member of the KKK. You know that. And, I heard you say on the show yesterday, but let's be intellectually honest. Okay, let's be intellectually honest. You know,
let's be intellectually honest. Hakeem Jeffries,
but you know that's not a
Hakeem
place
Jeffries
to go.
In a much more no.
That's not uniting.
Let me just be honest with you, Chris. I think the way we unite this country is having more open conversations in this country. There is a gap between what people are willing to say in private and what people are willing to say in public. And I think the way we get to national unity is by opening up those conversations and closing that gap. Some people think the way we get to national unity is by showing up in the middle and compromising. Good people believe this, even in the Republican Party. I reject that. I think the way we're going to unite this country is by reviving the principles that unite all of us as Americans across our diversity. being uncompromising about those principles. Those are radical principles, Chris. This nation was founded on free speech, open debate, self-governance, the unapologetic pursuit of excellence. These are radical ideals. These are not moderate ideas. Yes.
Having the right to say something, we both know, is not the same as whatever you say is going to be right. And
that's correct. And so let's talk about the actual substance of it. When you say you don't go there, I disagree.
But what I'm saying is,
Ayanna Pressley, I want to just really clarify, Chris, for
go
your
ahead,
audience,
please.
so we're not just having a meta conversation about what I said. I want to be clear about what I said. Ayanna Pressley clearly says, these are her words, not mine, we don't want any more black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't want any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. Well, you know what? At points in our history, we have had people who have talked about black faces and brown faces to shut up, sit down, and do as they're told. You know who did that? Yes, the Grand Wizard of the KKK. So, yes, I know that's a little provocative, but that's just the truth of the substance of what she said with her own words.
It's not provocative.
And the reality is, when Hakeem Jeffries said the same thing when he's comparing Donald Trump to the Grand Wizard of the KKK, somehow the left-wing media was fine with it. But when I'm using Ayanna Pressley's own words, then there's an issue with it. And that's a double standard, and I will not abide it.
But it's not a double standard. I'm with you. I'm saying be consistent.
It's absolutely a double standard, Chris, and you know
it. When people liken Donald Trump or other people on the right to being Hitler-esque or Nazis or Gestapo, it's wrong. It is wrong.
It's dead wrong.
It cheapens the poison of those things. Absolutely. I'm with you on that. Okay? Fine. Take it up with Hakeem Jeffries or whoever it is that says it. However, you doing the same thing is not,
but I'm not doing
playing to some better
virtue.
I'm not doing. But here's what I'm saying.
Here's the thing, Chris. I'm not doing the same thing because not all statements are equal. Not all statements are equal. And I just think it's open to, it's worth having this discussion, Chris, which is a good point to make, which is
you're not moving the needle. You're going to get attacked by the media. They give, the only thing you have going for you is that the media didn't jump on people for doing it with Trump. And when I would do it, I would get my butt handed to me for, all these stupid whataboutisms and false equivalency and all this other stuff. You can't make anybody happy right now in this business as a journalist, but it's not really your job. Here's what I'm saying. That's not the kind of dynamite that you explode in the conversation to bring people together. You will never be
Chris,
a unity candidate.
Disagree.
And that's why people are coming after you for what you wrote a year ago. When you wrote that book, you were dead honest about Trump and why you didn't like the election, and you changed it out of convenience. Go ahead.
Chris, I want to finish on the Pressley point, and then I'm going to address that. On the Pressley point and the Ibram Kendi point, what happens I see on the left is many good Democrats are ashamed of those statements from Ayanna Pressley, like the quote I shared, or Ibram Kendi's quote, famously, that the remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. But those views are guiding our culture from universities to corporate America to even behavior in government. And so the fact of the matter is we can't just ignore it, sweep it under the rug, and pretend like it didn't happen. We have to smoke that out and have an open debate about it. Now, on your point about the comments about Trump, and I heard Christie's nonsense before, and with due respect, it is nonsense, because I think there's a difference between bad behavior and criminal behavior. And when we conflate the two, that's a danger to our country. So I am running in this race, in the same race that Donald Trump is running, for a reason. I think I am best positioned to lead this country. And I would have made very different decisions than Trump made in the aftermath of January 6th. I said it at the time. I say it today. But that is different than believing that it is a good thing or it is desirable for him to somehow be indicted in 4 different prosecutions in the middle of an election where he's running.
The prosecution as if it was a persecution instead of walking the same line you did in the book, which is he lost the election.
He wasn't being prosecuted.
We could make the elections better, but it wasn't rigged. He's about grievance that ate up our party and didn't become about anything more that we needed it to. You're not saying those things anymore, and I know why. But it's not unified.
Unlike many of my other candidates on the Republican debate stage, I don't suffer from a Trump derangement syndrome. The fact of the matter is, what has changed is the man has been prosecuted 4 times. That sets a dangerous precedent in this country on novel legal theories that have never been used in the ways that they're being used here. We are skating on thin ice as the country. And I think once we set this weaponization of the justice system as a precedent in this country, that's not going to be good for Republicans or Democrats. It's not going to be good for the United States of America. And some people, Chris, when they say they want national unity, what they really mean is they just want to unify 50% of the people in this country and leave the other people out of it. I reject that. We have to unify all Americans. That's what the America First agenda stands for. And we have to recognize and be willing to call out. And by the way, in the poll that came out today, I'm second place. It would be easier for me if Donald Trump were eliminated from competition. It would be. I'd have a clear path to first place in the Republican nomination and then win the general. That's not how I want to win. And that's why I think it is so important for those of us who are competing against Trump to nonetheless call out the politicization of this prosecution. And I know that this is an obsession for the media, but I'm answering the questions as asked. That is why I am standing on the side of principle here.
It's an obsession with the media because you think that there's any definition of doing this job where you would ignore or sublimate the fact that you have 4 different indictments of the person who's leading the nomination of one of the 2 major parties in the country. Give me a break.
Which is dead wrong.
We can't avoid it.
And I've said it countless times. But the question is, how are we going to move forward?
You can't not cover it. Here's what I'm saying. Even that, Mark, you want to move the needle, good. God bless you in the pursuit because America needs it. But if you play these games like, well, the media is obsessed with him being prosecuted, we've never seen anything like it before. Of course, there's going to be attention on it, and you're benefiting from the attention.
With my response to this.
It's not. But that's like saying we're obsessed with covering hurricanes. We're obsessed with covering injustice. We're obsessed with covering our governance. Of course, that's the job.
Let's talk about the substance.
That's the job.
How are we going to fix this problem? And I'm going to say something now that you and I may agree with. I think the problem in this country is that the people who we elect to run the government, they're not even the ones who actually run the government. It is the managerial bureaucracy in a shadow government without any accountability to the people. That's what's actually draining the lifeblood out of our system.
I have no problem. I think that you should talk about that. I think you should talk about that all the time. And if people ask you about other things, what was in your book or anything like that, own it and pivot. Because the American people want to hear about that a lot more. But I'm telling you,
this is what we need to be talking about: how do we declare independence from China?
The invitation is
open.
How
do we grow an economy? This is what we actually need to be talking about.
And that's what this campaign is
focused about, and that's where we're going to succeed.
The invitation is open. I'm just saying that you are legit on the top tier of this race now. It's early, but that's where you are. You are going to have a hard time talking about anything else with the media coming after you for these kinds of things, playing that kind of game. It is a volatile game. The media just went through it already with Trump. They got a whole new set of feelings about it because they're not going through that again. I promise you that. But you are welcome here to talk about what matters to the American people. This is the moment we're in, where you're getting the light and the heat, so we'll discuss it, but we'll discuss other things as well. I'll see you going forward. America needs better, so I wish you all good things in making that happen.
I appreciate the conversation, and we'll continue it, Chris. Thank you.
All right. Be well. We'll talk again. All right, we're going to take a break.